continued with their strike. So the healthcare workers are employed by the Nairobi Metropolitan Services and services in the county public hospitals such as Pumwani, Maternity, Mama Lucy, Kibaki and Baga. They remain unavailable until further notice. This in a huge way is something that has brought the debate on as to whether indeed it was wise to devolve health or not. Some of them arguing that indeed there is that need of formation of a commission that is going to address health issues in the country, which is also one of the things that has been incorporated in the BBI report. And whether indeed this is going to come and solve the situation is a question of wait and see, because we all acknowledge that there's also a commission that deals with the issues of teachers. But sad to note is that we always have our teachers go on strike and still their issues not addressed as expected. So we can only wait to see whether this incorporation of a commission will come in handy and whether there will be a conversation to reverse that aspect of devolving health. This, as we proceed, we have Edwin Kigoli already joining us this morning. Edwin, good morning.
I'm looking at our map, and I can tell you that
some bit of a twist on the sound right there. Edwin?
I'm just going to go ahead and pop it up.
I guess Edwin is following up on the United States elections, on the numbers. The counting is ongoing, as I said earlier on. Let us fix that, and then we'll get a hold of him as we proceed. ODM summons Migori Governor MCAs to a meeting after several abortive attempts to impeach Governor Obado. Parties beats a retreat to seek reconciliation with embattled county boss. As one argued here some times back, is that you cannot afford to have an enemy, or ODM cannot afford to have an enemy in Obado. And Kigoli, good morning.
Good morning, Alila.
You well?
Yeah, very well. How about you?
I'm good also. Now that I have already done the analysis, quick, I'd love to hear your take, first of all, on this particular story that I have just touched on. ODM summons Migori governor, and MCAs to a meeting, this after several attempts to try and impeach Governor Okothobaru. Someone argued here is that ODM cannot afford to have an enemy in Obado. What do you make of that?
Well, I think these are some of the, politics that happen within the party structure. And I think, from the word go, like some of the high-ranking ODM officials have never accepted or admitted Obado as the governor of Migori. And you realized in 2013, Obado won without ODM, but he jumped ship to ODM in 2017 and still retained his seat. So there are some quarters that are not very, very comfortable with Okothobaru, but truth be told, he's a self-made politician and he can stand the test of time. And the idea of impeaching Obado is a pipe dream, and it has flopped as many times as ODM has tried to impeach him. And right now, I think in the interest of service delivery, we need to let him finish his term, because how many months are left before we get to 2022 polls? So maybe ODM, as they claim to be, they need to focus on service delivery. Let them support their governor, Okothobaru, to complete his term and deliver for the people of Migori, because these political sideshows are not going to help the people of Migori get around any better. So I think it's unnecessary tug of war that ODM is engaging in. There are more serious national issues that ODM should be focusing on than, hatching the downfall of Okothobaru.
All right. Well, we wait to see what will happen in regards to the same. Still on page 3, House team approves Zuhuru's pick for data job, and a parliamentary committee has approved Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Director of Voter Registration and Election Operations, Immaculate Kasait, to be the country's data commissioner. The Departmental Committee on Communications, Information and Innovation, chaired by Marakwet West Member of Parliament Kisang, asked the House to approve Kasait, who was appointed by President Uhuru Kenyatta. We wait to see what will culminate in that and whether indeed she will, of course, deliver as, of course, that office expects her to. But back to the front page, so I would allow you to weigh in on these stories that I've already touched on. Key players who will carry the BBI dream. The conversation on BBI is still on, with talks talks of it being uncontested, others arguing that there should not be any amendments done on the document as it is, while others threaten that, in the event that these adjustments that they propose are not going to be made, then they are not going to support the BBI.
Well, Alila, these are very, very interesting times that we find ourselves in. And you want to ask yourself a number of questions with regards to the BBI. Indeed, if this is a Building Bridges initiative, then why can't we see everybody on board? Why do we see a section of politicians invited to attend a retreat to make critical and key decisions about the document? You see, we talk about building a united, cohesive, and a country that is rallied around a common set of goals and principles. Let us have a country that for the first time embraces sincerity. There are many people who are calling a lot for the proponents of BBI to embrace everybody and not to leave anybody behind. So this is a good document, but how we deliver it to Kenyans will determine how some Kenyans will take it. There are those who will accept it, there are those who will reject it in the end if we do not deliver it very, very well. So what happened in Naivasha in the first place shouldn't have happened. Extend invitation to everybody who is supposed to be attending, so that somebody chooses not to attend. But when you don't invite some and invite others, and then it sends some signals about the sincerity of the whole thing. This BBI thing, it has some key propositions that we need to put our minds together as Kenyans so that we can determine the best way forward. Because as it is, in my opinion, I think it would be even a better document if we allow for some modifications. There is nothing that is absolute. Let's make the adjustments that can make even this country more better. Let us allow for differing opinions to be incorporated in the document. Let this be a non-contested referendum for the first time in our country. That money that of course would have gone for a referendum, it can be put in something else to enhance productivity of our women, of our young people, move our economy, because as I've always said, the defining moment of our time is how to create and sustain economic turnaround and development. Now, right now, it's not just about growth and development, but turnaround, because COVID has dealt a serious dent on our economic projections. So right now, what you're looking at is how to create and sustain that turnaround, and then advance that as the statistics of growth, so that everybody will feel that we are making progress as a country. But if we are not very careful, BBI will bring some problems in the near future.
All right. Well, that aside, this particular story, and let's make it a little bit brief, Ruto allies accused the state and DP's political associates claim that the government officials are behind lawyer Paul Gesheru's surrender to the International Criminal Court. And like I said, this is a developing story and so much developments coming out of it. I mean, some of them you don't even know which one to take, which to drop. But all the same, we are right here to make sure that we get the information right so that you are well updated. This, of course, we were treated to as of yesterday in regards to the surrender of Gesheru to the ICC, after he was claimed to have interfered with the witnesses. Or they claimed that he had interfered with witnesses, the ICC case.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, the timing of this whole thing. This is now a new development, and I think the scales of justice will tilt in the right direction. And there are now a lot of stories that are coming up and now asking, what does it mean for deputy president? Our president and the deputy's cases, they were shelved, and they can be revived if the prosecution is convinced beyond reasonable doubt that they have more evidence to warrant prosecution. So again, we'll be looking into what is happening and the developments around this ICC issue, and moving forward, I think the pre-trial chambers and the trial chambers will be making the right decisions in terms of what should happen. Is it going to be implicating anybody, and if so, how? What are the modalities around the whole thing? But again, bribing witnesses and in a way to influence the recanting of evidence or withdrawing of witnesses in that manner, it's a punishable offense, and the Rome Statute will be applied accordingly. So I think it's us to wait and see how the wheels of justice will be turning on this particular development. And this is somebody who has turned themselves up and clearly admitted to have committed that offense. So we'll see how the scales of justice will be tilting and how judgments will be rendered around that case to see if somebody will be implicated or it's just this particular person who is now in the custody of the ICC will be happening.
Right. I noticed that you've been following up on the United States elections or electioneering period. What do you make of what is taking center stage, and couple that with what has been happening in Uganda? What happened as of yesterday as the nominations or as the candidates who are presenting their nomination papers?
A very interesting question, Salila, and allow me to start with Uganda. I think President Museveni says, if I got this government through guerrilla tactics, then why should I give it to you democratically? If you want it, then go to the forest, fight me, get me out of power. But I'm not ready to give it to you, Bobi Wine, like on a silver platter. Ask Kizza Besigye. But again, in these current times, these tactics are outdated. They are past, and they no longer hold ground. And Bobi Wine has support of the young people and is the biggest threat than Kizza Besigye to Museveni's reign. Actually, if on fair grounds, Bobi Wine can defeat Museveni. But that is to wait and see how things will be turning around in Uganda. Going to United States of America, US is in a time like never before. They've never been in such an unprecedented moment, a time when we are seeing like connotations of violence, post-election violence being tagged to the current election. And Joe Biden is having a narrow lead, and we'll be waiting to see the tally, because right now it's still very, very close to poll. It's still very early, and we'll keep watching and following how the votes come in, how the Electoral College is happening. But as of now, Joe Biden is leading in the Electoral College with about 98 votes, and Donald Trump is around 92. He's just closed that gap in a couple of minutes because Biden was at 89 and Donald Trump was at 72. So you can imagine how Donald Trump has easily closed in that gap. So we'll be following to see how this development will be happening. But again, Alila, allow me to mention this. US is the most robust and mature democracy in the world. And when the greatest democracy in the world is shaken in terms of how it is conducted, handling that democracy, again, it brings into sharp focus. It's not always cast on stone. There are times things can change for the better or for the worse. So how we navigate around really defines a lot, because Kenya is very interested in how the election will turn around, and because Joe Biden is seen as another Obama taking over, because you've seen Donald Trump president repeal and really replace the legacy of President Obama. Joe Biden is seen as somebody to restore that legacy and maybe create a legacy for himself. But this is something we'll be closely following. And you look at the Senate of US, as of this moment in time, the Democrats are leading, though narrowly, but more votes are coming in. So maybe by midday today, Kenyan time, we'll be able to tell exactly, we'll be able to get a projection, yes, as to where the election is going. But as of now, the Democrats are likely to control the houses, which is an indication of who can win.
Like you rightfully put it, electoral map currently, Biden is at 98 and Trump is at 95. Kansas, Louisiana, Utah, Nebraska, all for Trump. Florida, Georgia, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, Trump currently ahead, and Biden, I don't know, Joe Biden, whichever way you want to put it, ahead in Arizona, Minnesota, and Iowa. We'll be giving you updates on the same as we proceed. Like you rightfully put it, yes, so much is still culminating. And of course, that will be the determinant factor as to what will happen in the United States. And before we proceed on what is captured on the People Daily, let's briefly take a look at what is there or in the other newspapers. Let's take a look at this. I don't know why I do not have these ones. The Standard newspaper, yes, here we are. Let's see. Still a little bit, yes. Referendum battles line take shape. I think we've touched on that. Lawyer in Ruto ICC case left for Hague without a word. Also, we have touched on that. America decides. We have touched on that. Lack of suppliers leaves patients gasping for air. Yes, the COVID-19 numbers are high and high. President Uhuru Kenyatta convenes this crisis meeting today. What do you make of the situation in the country when a school, samples are taken from a school, 100 of them, and out of them 60 come out positive?
Alila, this paints a very ugly picture, like in our education sector. You want to imagine if there is full resumption of learning, if like grade 4 and Form 4 students are testing at this rate, then what will happen when there is full resumption of learning in our primary and secondary schools? I can only see a disaster ahead. I pray we don't get there, but going by the statistics right now, I am not confident that we are prepared to deal with this pandemic. Our county governments, many of them even are not ready to handle a surge in the numbers. And when we look at how we are, look at the logistics that are going to be put in place, like for students to travel from point A to point B in their numbers to resume learning, and to also go to school and find some cases already waiting for them in school. Cases are now domesticated in some of our schools, and we have seen some teachers pay the ultimate price. We've seen students getting infected. So, Alila, these are very, very tough and strange times. But again, one thing for sure is that this virus is not going anywhere anytime soon. So we must learn to live with it, and we must brace for tougher times and just pray to God and keep safe and just follow the Ministry of Health guidelines or the protocols. But I really empathize and sympathize with our schools. Our students, some of them are really, really struggling with infrastructure. So because we are not prepared to social distance in some of our schools. Our education infrastructure is so poor that we cannot afford this social distancing. So if all the numbers of students come back to school, then Alila, social distancing is thrown out in the window. We are not going to handle it. We are not going to manage. We can only hope that the grace of God prevails and takes care of our students. Because again, we must reopen our schools. Students must go to learn. They cannot stay home for two years. Otherwise, what will they be doing at home, and what effect will that have on their studies? So I think we must prepare for tougher times. We must really, really now think critically. Now, with this reality, should government invest more in our ICT infrastructure in our public schools? Should government build more infrastructure? Should government give education priority that it deserves? Should government now focus on making and transforming our education sector so that it is able to respond appropriately in such tougher times? Because you've seen private schools really do well in this crisis in terms of handling their students. But talk about the rural public schools where students even have never seen a computer, have never seen like an iPad that they can use for learning. Like online learning to them is like a story that they wish to read. So maybe President Kenyatta can revive his agenda of building computer laboratories in schools so that every learning child can get an opportunity to be computer literate, because actually this is a digital era, and we need to equip our schools with ICT equipment so that public schools can compete favorably with with private schools. And Dalila, 1 second, if you allow me. I was sharing with a friend and I was asking about the fairness of examining these students. Here is a student who doesn't have infrastructure at all, and here is another who has everything they need to be better and prepared for exams. So if you examine the same students with the same parameters, are you being fair to this student who is in the rural area in this country than this student who has everything they need at their disposal?
Okay, well, so much so happening in regards to that. We'll be following up closely to give you updates. As of now, of course, the U.S. elections, Electoral College votes, as Trump stands at 108, Biden at 131. Votes needed to win around 270. We'll be giving you updates some more as they come in. And on that note, Edwin Kigweli, thank you so much for keeping me company. Let's take a short break and we'll be coming back with the discussion.
Life is a journey, and we all have ups and downs, highs and lows, and celebrities are no exception.
Do you know I couldn't pay rent? Do you know there's a time I went 3 days without food? If you read my book, I ate Colgate for dinner.
On Coffee with Movie, we get up close and personal.
Nilizaliwa hivyo. Yes, mimi sijawahi ona.
We have candid conversations that are inspiring.
Na acha nikwambie, mtu mmebarikiwa na mlikuwa nyote mko kwa line, mko kwa foleni. Huyu akibarikiwa sasa ametoka, bado foleni nasonga. Wewe ni next.
Humorous.
This is going to be the craziest interview ever.
And life-changing.
Success is value system and the legacy you leave.
Coffee with Movie, every Sunday at 8 p.m. only on TV 47.
To you guys, Maze, keep it the big flag. You know how we do every Monday to Friday.
How deep is your love for me?
Thursdays, we talk about property, land buying, home ownership, construction material, interior design, furniture, and fittings. A field day for you in everything properties to grow your brand. Come enjoy incredible value through intensity, frequency, and most of all, pocket-friendly prices. Thursday Property Experience only on TV 47. For more information, call us on 0712 047 047 and let us help you grow.
Sona moja imetengenezwa kwa njia spesheli ili kupambana na maumivu kwa haraka. Sona moja ina aspirin kama kiungo. Sona moja, kitulizo kamili. Maumivu yakizidi, pata ushauri wa daktari.
that we decipher on the subjects of the day, and I'll pick up on about 3 key issues that are making headlines right here in the country. Of course, we'll not be focusing much on the United States, but then again, we'll also have the panelists of the day giving their take on what is happening down there. Of course, we'll keep you updated on the results as and when they get to trickle in. It is instrumental that we also get to follow up on what is happening in one of the biggest democracies across the globe. Most importantly, we do not forget what is happening right here at home. Quite sad to note is that COVID-19 cases continue to rise, and this of course begs the question as to what next we need to do towards ensuring that we are able to quell or tame the spread of the virus. Yes, that declaration by President Uhuru Kenyatta that we should probably proceed and ease up the restrictions that were put on board has taken us to a point whereby some are asking whether we should regret, others are saying that, well, there is nothing much that we could have done apart from taking that direction. Is it to save the lives or to save the economy? Continues to be the debate of the day. And even as we await that crisis meeting to be convened by President Uhuru Kenyatta today, we still question on what he will take as decisions towards ensuring that we tame this. Governors arguing that it is important that we proceed and lock down some of these counties, well, based on the cases that have been recorded. Let's take a look at the curve and how, it is taking a trajectory, which is pretty much unfortunate to note. And we'll be coming back to ponder as I get to introduce the guests.
Since the relaxation of COVID-19 guidelines and the reopening of some of the major sectors in the country on the 28th of September by President Uhuru Kenyatta, things are seemingly getting murkier by the day, 36 days down the line. From a declining number of COVID-19 infections in the month of August and September to a steep rising curve in the month of October, the dawn of a second wave of COVID-19 infections in the country. Did the reopening come too soon, and is shutting down the country the one and only remaining option? A spot check by TV47 in different parts of Kenya's COVID-19 epicenter, Nairobi City, it is evident that Kenyans are ignoring and flouting COVID-19 guidelines. Most of the people we encountered didn't wear masks, while those who did wore it inappropriately on their chins. This shockingly not excluding law enforcement officers who are supposed to enforce the adherence of COVID-19 containment measures. Businessmen going about their businesses without the care for a mask or the 1.5 social distancing rule. Are Kenyans ignorant, rebellious, or are they just tired 8 months into the pandemic? On the other hand, the political class, having just launched the infamous BBI report, are extremely busy holding rallies and campaigns for the report in different parts of the country. The gatherings that are led by the head of state himself and his deputy, Dr. William Ruto, barely following COVID-19 guidelines, no or little consideration on social distancing rule or even wearing of masks. DP Ruto, through his Twitter handle this evening, acknowledging the damage done by political rallies which comes to the fight against COVID-19 and promising to scale down his meetings. He says, and I quote, "The upsurge in COVID-19 cases strongly indicates that a second wave might be in the offing. For this reason, I have decided to significantly scale down my public engagements until further notice." The empowerment meetings for this weekend in Machakos, Kitui and Makueni are postponed. End of quote. The reopening of the country brought a huge relief to many Kenyans and to different sectors that came very close to collapsing as a result of the closure. And barely a month after the reopening, another closure will have huge implications to the sectors, should Wednesday's meeting determine so. The the main question now being who is to blame should there be a second shutdown. President Uhuru Kenyatta will be meeting with governors from the 47 counties tomorrow in an urgent extraordinary meeting that is expected to chart the country's way forward in the wake of a second wave of COVID-19 infections. Zainab Mohammed, TV47, Nairobi.
Well, there you go. As would want to play, not really actually playing the devil's advocate from that particular story. So much has been gathered, including that conversation that politicians are out here politicking, and they tend to forget the importance of upholding the measures set to deal with COVID-19. Well, for instance, so to speak, Zainab has captured that particular aspect where he says, the president and the DP continue to hold these meetings, these rallies, and so on and so forth. Well, the DP yesterday declared that he officially stops traversing different parts of the country as he sees the numerous cases that have been registered in regards to COVID-19, and he says that it is necessary that we stay woke, it is necessary that we are cautious. Well, that's what we'll be discussing this morning, and we also take a look at what is happening with the BBI conversation that is right here with us, and a couple of other things that we'll be touching on as we proceed with the broadcast. Joining me for this conversation this morning, seated right next to me, is Michael Agwanda, who's a governance expert. He is going to help us ponder on what is happening right here and the approach of the government in regards to the same. We also have Fred Okango, who's the Secretary General of Third Way Alliance. He'll be helping us also ponder on the same. He gave us a disclaimer. He argues that, he is categorically going to be biased this morning and the approach of the BBI. We get to know what his reservations are as we proceed. And lastly, we have Noreen Kagai, who's a lawyer and a politician, also to help us ponder on the same. I was actually telling them that, there's that need that we work on our ladies so much so, because 3/4 of the time I always have a panelist that is comprised of men. I do not know what is happening with our ladies out there, even as we call out for that balance on matters gender. Gentlemen, karibuni sana. All right, let's play the devil's advocate, and also let's focus on the aspect of the COVID-19 surge in the country. Pretty much unfortunate to note, but a lot of confusion. So I would want to say that, in as much as many argue that maybe there's no even COVID-19, reality is that what is being projected by the government today, or the Ministry of Health, is something that really needs to get us to that point of concern. Michael Agwanda, it's been a minute since we had you here. What do you make of the COVID-19 scenario in the country?
Thank you, Linda, and it's good to be here today.
Yeah.
COVID-19 is real. The numbers that are being projected out there is just a fraction of the reality on the ground. Mm-hmm. I strongly believe that if we had tested more, we probably would be having even higher numbers today. Mm-hmm. I think the fundamental question that we need to ask ourselves is, what are we doing about mm-hmm. COVID-19? Not necessarily whether COVID-19 is here or not, in my view. COVID-19 is going to be here. It's going to be here for a while. It's not going to go out of our society soon. And it's a global pandemic. That means it's affecting the entire world. Mm-hmm. Today, if you ask me what perhaps we need to do to mitigate the infection, to mitigate the management, to mitigate the treatment aspect of it, perhaps that is what I would be, it would be essential to talk about.
Yeah.
We know that vaccines are far away. They're probably in their third testing stage now in the US, UK, and Germany, and other countries, including Kenya, that is trying to get a vaccine. All we know for a fact is no vaccine has been put out there and has been authentically introduced as a vaccine that will be coming to help on coronavirus. To that extent, I think we need to talk about reality in our country. And the reality in our country is, do we have enough ventilators in this country? And I think that is a fundamental question that perhaps need to be asked. I can tell you for free that we may not be able to have enough ventilators. There was an expectation of about 300 ICUs in every country. Right. Not all the counties have it. In fact, maybe a half of the counties in this country have it. And that's a problem that perhaps the president needs to address today as he speaks to the governors. Another thing that perhaps we need to ask ourselves is, why have we not decentralized testing of COVID-19 in all the counties? Okay. Why do they have to come to Nairobi or come to Kisumu CDC or come to maybe the Moi Referral Hospital? Why do these few centers be the only place? Yet Kenya got billions for COVID-19. And thirdly, but not least, is then why can't we also ensure that COVID-19 to be tested also in sub-counties? Right. And we know for a fact that the results that we're having are for those that have been tested. There are many people out there that are walking with COVID-19 and will never know they had COVID-19, are continuing to spread COVID-19 and may never even have the symptoms of COVID-19.
Well, they acknowledge that the testing capacity is lower. Well, the kits themselves are not there in plenty, as so to speak. And such has been the case from that time when, we registered the first cases. Maybe just to loop in Fred, and President Uhuru Kenyatta convenes crisis meetings. We keep arguing that, it's not the first time that we're seeing these meetings. We do not even know what it is that the task force that was channeled towards dealing with economic recovery is doing as of now. Not so much of reports are coming out of this. What are your expectations?
Thank you, Linda. First of all, it is good to acknowledge that COVID-19 is a pandemic. Yeah. It's global. And if you look at how other jurisdictions have dealt with it, they're trying to manage it. And therefore, we'll be lying to ourselves to imagine that this is a situation that is unique only to Kenya. It is not. Number two, it is important also to underscore the fact that from the experience that the world has had with the COVID, it is obvious now that management is the key to success of this pandemic. Okay. And therefore, there are simple things like washing hands, sanitizing, masking up, and keeping social distancing. But having said that, the president has convened another extraordinary conference with the stakeholders. Yeah. And my expectation today is that we have been told by the experts that the numbers are going up. The positivity rate at some point was back to 18%. Look at the deaths, they have increased to even 18. Yeah. That tells you that maybe we are just getting to the peak where we ought to have been getting to, so that the curve can start going down, in my view. But I think what we need to do, and my expectation of the president today as he speaks to the country after the conference, is that I have seen a lot of gatherings, political gathering, just call it social gathering. They have been there. And in those gatherings, we have also seen where people are not wearing masks. There is no, in fact, it's zero distance. And therefore, the president should call out those who have been doing that. Majority of them are politicians. Well, him included. And the question then, and that's what I'm saying. The BBI is all, majority of them are politicians. I haven't seen any BBI rally yet. I have not seen that, but I've seen meetings of engagement, youth engagement. That start from the church, then they go to the rally. We have seen there have been several. Well, and I'm glad that the Bomas meeting also, which was huge, and really the observance of this mission. I was at Bomas, and as far as I'm concerned, there was COVID protocol observed. But I've seen rallies, Linda, where people jostle to go and get the feeling of what the speaker is saying. Now, it is also important to note that this is a health issue. And if you look at our country today, as Mike has aptly put it, the testings should now be mass. Because we don't know exactly, out of the 50 million Kenyans, how many are actually positive. And again, the good thing with the virus is, from the trends that we have seen, is that you can be asymptomatic. You can only know that you don't have it if you are tested. Now, That issue of health, the government must now address it from the national level to the county level, and not only at the county headquarters, to the ward level. Because majority of the people in the villages, when you go to the villages, and those who go to the villages every weekend will tell you, you are right there with a mask, and the first thing they do, they tell you that you have brought corona. Because they don't even believe that there's corona. So we need to take that mechanism down to the ward level, to the villages, so that we can actually identify how many people are actually suffering from the disease. And again, lastly on this is, we must live with it. This is something that is going to be here. In my projection, if I look at the trends, because it is something that is like a flu, it will be here for long. And we must have our lives going on. Look at America. They are going for election today. Tanzania went for election. Burundi, they went for election. It doesn't mean that we are going to stop there. What the government must do now, put measures in place that are going to contain it and ensure that we have self-discipline. The most important thing is self-discipline. When you walk here, we take our temperatures, you sanitize, you walk to the studio. Why is it that that cannot happen in every institution, in every place of work, even at home? So that we can now start measuring how we are progressing with this disease.
Just how capable is it for the government to conduct these testings, the mass testing and targeted testing for that matter? Because I would want to assume that really it is not intentional that this is not being done in the country. So what really is holding us back, and just how much more do we need to do towards ensuring that we deal with this? Because I mean, some of the proposals being given or the measures being projected are technically what we've been following all this while.
I believe the problem we're facing is management. That stems from the government. The government has failed to manage the situation. And what do I mean? Because if you look at, for example, they're giving you measures that you need to follow: wash your hands, sanitize, maintain social distance, and have a mask on. But how many of the leaders do that? That's question number one. Then number two, we have leaders who are seen on numerous occasions to have said that this thing is fake. So when you go on a podium and you tell Kenyans, that this thing is fake, do you expect them to wash their hands? Do you expect them to sanitize?
No.
So I believe the second wave that we are facing is majorly because of the political leaders. What do I mean? They are all in a frenzy. They are all on campaign mode. He might say the BBI campaign hasn't started, but it has started. By the president moving around, and everybody goes and says, Musome, then decide. You're already putting that thing in the people's minds, you see. So at the end of the day, they need to tell us what's most important. Is it the health, or is it what they want to pass? Because at the end of the day, you will lead no one when everyone is dead. So health is the most important thing. So I believe before he even convenes the conference today, he needs to look at himself, start from himself, you know, because he is part and parcel of the problem. Look at his fellow leaders or politicians and come up with a framework. You see, the deputy president is smart in what he's doing. In saying that he's scaling down. You know, he's doing two things. One, he's looking like the good one. That's number one. Number two, there might be reasons. You know, we have new developments courtesy of ICC. He may be trying to frame up his next move, you know. So they, on the other hand, if they continue beating the regulars, they're saying, they will look like they're out of touch. Because at the end of the day, if we are trying to manage the pandemic, let us manage it and let us move ahead. But let us not focus solely on politics.
All right. Well, okay. Agwanda, as we get to wind up on this and picking up from what Nordin says, well, a tactical move right there from the DP. But do you think now that Fred declared that he is going to be, you know, he is going to take an approach where, of course, he's in defense of the BBI, do you suppose that he's being hypocritical when he says that genuinely we've not seen, you know, rallies and, you know, meetings or big sessions that, you know, are set to discuss the BBI? And is it going to be the case moving on?
Politicians are politicians in this country. The people you don't want to take their words to the bank are politicians. You can say that he's postponed a few meetings in the northeastern region and eastern region, and then tomorrow you see him in a church. That does not, does not mean that he stopped his tour. I strongly believe that him saying that he's postponed, what he's talking about is actually this weekend activities. That is what the DP is saying and his allies are saying. But if you look keenly, sometimes it's not really what the leader says. It's what the people around him say. And in this case, it's very, very clear. I mean, his people, there are a number of MPs who've said we are going to oppose this. That he has not said categorically. They've said that they're already having a roadmap of about 14 days on how to oppose this, and they're going to execute it. And so I don't believe a bit that he's postponed. He's probably just technically saying, I'm going to wait and see what the president says on Wednesday, just in case it clashes with maybe new measures on COVID-19, and I don't want to go against the president in this case. If he says that, he's perhaps preempting what the president must say. And if the president says that there is no rallies, then it will look like he was, a smart guy, and he looked ahead and he knew what the president was going to say. But if the president says, doesn't talk about it at all, I can guarantee you that the deputy president will be somewhere this weekend. He'll be in a church. You can't stop him from going to a church. You can't stop him from talking to a congregation that is waiting for him. And I would see that happen in this country. I think what Okang'o was saying is really, really important to take home. I think when we want to control the spread of this the spread of COVID-19 in this country, then we must be cognizant of the fact that the crowd is the biggest opportunity to spread it. But who are the perpetrators of this crowd? It's the president. It's the leaders of this country. And we have to know that when we politicize a pandemic, which is a health matter, then people will not take it serious, because people have never taken politicians seriously in this country. But if you leave it, for example, let me give you an example, a very good example. Now, if you're found without a mask, you'll be charged 20,000. Who is that order enriching other than the police? We've seen that. If they're not able to control the corruption on the road, who is that order enriching? It is the police that are being enriched and being empowered to continue having corruption. If they had said that this is a health matter and it is the public health experts that are going to make sure that they control it, then people will listen a little more. But you give it to the police. How many times do people listen to the police? People want to listen to experts on matters of health saying, this is how we need to go about it. And Okang'o has enumerated some of the things that MOH has said, which is very, very important. But one thing that we have to know is giving us the numbers that are not necessarily, if you look at this statistic, and I'll give you something that perhaps people are not talking about, is what we call case fatality ratio. We haven't got there yet. That means we are at the point yet. Yes, the numbers are going up, but you can see that the case fatality ratio is not matching. That means we can live with this pandemic. And if we can live with it, then all we need to do is, if you are sick, you're having headache, or you're having some fever, or you're having whatever it is, you're tested to be found to be having COVID, it needs to be managed to that point. But the country cannot stop because of COVID-19, that its case fatality ratio in this country is not matching. It's not a huge problem. And I would conclude by saying this. Not everyone who dies with COVID-19, in quote, died from COVID-19. You could be having heart-related issues. You happen to have got COVID-19. It doesn't necessarily mean that you died from COVID-19. And so you see, this has to be very clear. And the only person who can make this very clear so that it's not a fear into the country is the public health person, not the IG, not the police. Because when you go that direction, people know how to handle the police, people know how to handle the IG, and they will forget about the health matters.
All right, well, let's drop that one as we await what it is that the president is going to say today. And a bit, let's talk about the BBI, which is actually the conversation that is ongoing, the biggest, so to speak. And before we came on board, like I had said earlier on, Fred declared that yes, he's going to be biased, he's going to take a biased approach. And then in this case, it would mean he will be in support of the BBI. Well, I asked Michael what he thinks. He argues that, his is not going to be either biased or what. He is focusing on the aspect of having a conversation revolving around around the document. Kagai, where do you stand?
No, objectivity.
Objectivity. So in this case, then let's take that idea of, we're going to have a discussion revolving around. Fred, I'll ask you this. Is there any room for discussions revolving around the BBI, looking at what has been happening recently and that declaration from some members of parliament that are pro the BBI, arguing that, they might not even amend this document. It should go as it is.
Linda, let's start from the objects of the BBI.
Yeah.
And even before we arrived there, how did the BBI process start? And I'm talking from the point of constitutional amendment processes, how they happen. The document that was presented before the people in Bomas has been presented before the people or the public twice. That means people got to know about this document. When they were invited, they presented their views, and those views were collected. The experts went through them, and then they were converted in a document that was presented before the Bomas 1, then Bomas 2. It means this process has traveled, and Kenyans had an opportunity, just like the Punguza Mizigo, Kenyans had an opportunity to interact with them. Kenyans had an opportunity to present their views. Okay?
Yes.
Now, that is the process, and that means public participation. Some level of public participation happened. Today, we are talking about a document that has enumerated on the issues of economic inclusivity, political inclusivity, social inclusivity, and has done so in 3 formats. Number 1, actually in 4, constitutional reforms, administrative reforms, policy reforms, and legislative reforms. I saw a group of politicians speaking, and some of these people never appeared before the task force. Some of these people never sent any document to give their views that should be accommodated in that document. Now,
I had Kenyans here. I had people who argued that they had presented all this, but nothing was incorporated.
That's fair.
Okay.
But you know what? Constitutional making process is a negotiated process. You cannot take 20 issues and expect to have all of them. For us as a party, we presented 15 issues. Only 9 out of the issues, and more so on the economic part, have been accommodated in that document, and that's what Kenyans need. So for me, I submit that majority of the people that are speaking today are of personal interest. I have seen, look at even the senators who are claiming that the Senate has been watered down. They are the same people who took Kenyans around in the division revenue allocation. Look at the pastoralists. Some of them who are speaking, they are speaking because they have got an interest in the coming election. But that is politics, we understand. What I can say, we are a democratic society. Kenya is a democracy. This document is going to travel, and if we are to go to a referendum, which is a requirement of amending the Constitution as per Article 255, because some of the proposals that have been presented to the people require that the people must take a public vote, it will mean that we have a timeline. Now, I'm looking at the timelines that are required in Article 257 that need to be adhered to. Then you'll realize that some of the people that are complaining are actually pulling a derailing tactic so that this document doesn't see light of day, even with the good things that it are.
I'm surprised that the gentlemen here are silent on this particular issue, because genuinely, if we are to have a conversation revolving around the same, then this kind of approach is probably not what you would want to hear. And let's listen in to what it is that the proponents of the BBI argue in regards to the same. According to what they say is that all these people who are projecting, calling for changes to be, or amendments to be done on the document, as rightfully you put it, people who are just trying to derail the process. Whether it's genuine or not is a question of wait and see. So let's listen into that and come back, react.
BBI! A day after President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM boss Raila Odinga officially approved the BBI campaign's kickoff to popularize the report among Kenyans ahead of the proposed referendum, those in support of the report as well as opposers are expected to meet in the campaign field to marshal their numbers. National Assembly Minority Leader John Mbadi says after yesterday's meeting, which brought together only BBI supporters, the journey to amend the 2010 Constitution has started in earnest.
A decision as leadership that the meeting that we are going to first have is with those MPs who are supporting the process, so that we agree on the roadmap, because we are pressed of time. There's no time literally to waste in terms of preparing for possible referendum, which must take place latest mid next year.
Mbadi, who is also a Suba South Member of Parliament, has rubbished the narrative by those opposed to the BBI report, saying they had 2 years to present their grievances to the committee, insisting that the BBI train has long taken off.
We're engaging in another process. The accusation then was that we were doing it because we were not satisfied with the draft. Now this draft was taken back to the people and largely discussed in terms of validation. Now you have produced a report, final document, even with suggested legislations. You still want to put it out there again for further discussion. When will that discussion end?
Meanwhile, Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei, and who is a close ally of the Deputy President William Ruto, says if their grievances won't be considered in the report, they will have to shoot it down.
Naivasha retreat is not parliament. We are waiting for them at the floor of the House. Even the comma or the full stop they will bring from that meeting will reject it ab initio. They will not have a space to discuss, because there are so many members of parliament who never attended, not because of anything, but because they didn't see the interest. They didn't see the interest of Kenyans being taken into account.
According to the BBI schedule, the 1 million signatures exercise goes on until December 10th. Then IEBC will have 30 days to verify the signatures before the report proceeds to the counties, where it's expected to gain support from at least 24 county assemblies out of 47 county assemblies. Migori Senator Ochilo Ayako says the report is beneficial to the country, and all they are waiting for is a referendum, whether contested or non-contested.
Now is an elective post designed exclusively for an individual or for individuals. It's an elective post. Any Kenyan, including the hustlers, if there are some people who are called hustlers, can run for that office and win it.
Kenyans are expected to take the referendum vote between April and June next year, and on whether DP Ruto allies will change their mind is now a matter of wait and see. With the BBI roadmap clearly set, the BBI proponents insist that there won't be amendments to the report, while DP Ruto allies already feel sidelined. Elizabeth Mutuku, TV47 Nairobi.
Well, just how much of an opening is there to discuss this document, based on what we see today? Nuden?
I take issue with the headline stand that the proponents have.
Yeah.
When you say there's no room for consultation, there's no room to amend anything, and then you are busy saying the reason why we have a BBI is for unity.
Right.
So what is unity? So is it us united minus you? That is not unity. That is funny and laughable. Irrespective of what the other camp might say or feel, listen to them. It's like when you have a child who says, I'm not going to school, Mom, tomorrow. Yeah. I don't want school anymore. You don't say, why? You don't say, okay, you want to go. You ask yourself, why don't you have to go to school? And come up, talk to them, give them the benefits of going to school and reach a middle ground, right? Now, he's talking about uniting the country, but we have certain people who feel they are being left out. And that is why I'm saying the BBI is funny. Because at the end of the day, if you look at how the text of the BBI is meant for two things. One, it's meant to form political formations. That's number one. Then number two, it's meant for a referendum. Now, I take issue with certain matters in the BBI. For example, let's go to easy things like focus on the youth.
Yeah.
You see, when they tell you 7 years, tax grace of 7 years, and then they tell you 4 years of health loan, and then they tell you a youth commission. So number one, 7 years a tax grace. Have they talked about the capital? Are you meant to have a business or capital? You see, it's funny. Incorporate the Sakaja startup bill, turn it into a money bill. Now let's talk about that. You see, when you talk about the HELB 4 years, you know, right now, if you finish school, for example, and you're not employed, all you need to do is write a letter to HELB, and they will tell you the moment you get employment, you start paying.
So the reprieve is automatic.
And they tell you a youth commission. So what happens to the NYC, the National Youth Council? So you see, at the end of the day, they say it's for the youth. Orengo, I heard him saying it's the time for the youth. You see, they have gotten to a realization where it's the youth, it's globally, the youth, it's the time for the youth globally. And so they are trying to use that as a sweetener to have the youth support this document. Because at the end of the day, the main reason why we have the document is for the expansion of the executive. And that is the reason. Because everything else, economic factors and whatnot, Jubilee needs to accept that it has failed as a government. You don't need a report to show you how to make the economy grow. You're talking about solving historical injustices. We have things like the Ndugu report, never implemented. We have the TGRC, never implemented. We have a constitution, one of the best in the world. They have failed to implement that. Now they want to amend it. You see, so I find it funny because at the end of the day, they are trying to tell us this is good for us, but there is an ulterior motive. It is not for the common Kenyan. It is not. Because Kenyans are united normally without an election. Because right now, Kamau Otieno will watch a football match together, laugh, hug, and say goodbye. But when we get to elections, and it's good the president said himself, they are the reason for the ethnicity. So the issue we have, the problem is the political class. They need to sort themselves out, and we don't need a report for that. We don't need a report to make the economy grow. They have made the ease of doing business so harsh. For example, if you want to have register a business or carry out a business, the number of permits you have to get. I had a friend who told me he was trying to open up water recycling station in Kirinyaga. He had to get 8 permits at a cost of 81,000 before you even start the business. So what are you trying to tell Kenyans? A report will solve that? Let us be honest.
Okay, well, picking it up from that, is it genuine to even imagine that it would have been wise that this constitutional process and, you know, that aspect of raising concerns would have ended at that point of public participation, and we should not have a conversation in regards to the same from now moving forward, just because a few individuals probably did not attend these meetings when the conversation was ongoing, and now they've cropped up and they want to challenge what is in the report. When we went to Bomas just the other day when the report was formally being presented to the public, the conversation was that yes, we should have an inclusive approach to this. Let's all have a conversation and a debate revolving around the same. But that has changed. What could have informed this?
Well, Linda, you know, I want to address Regine because he's a youth. I've just passed the age of the youth. And he talks very passionately. And perhaps he's among maybe about 20 youth that speak on TV and maybe in the whole of maybe 50 million Kenyans. So he's privileged to be on TV and to air his views. I want to tell him today, and I want the other youths there listening to know, that even if it's in the Constitution, if you don't fight for it, you'll never get it. Let me give him an example of 30% rule in the counties for the contracts that are supposed to be given to the youth, the women, and the disability. Ask him whether he's gotten that tender. I can tell you for free, it is because the youth are not speaking on one voice. The politician does not listen to people who speak nicely on TV. They listen to people who make noise on the street and make it so hard for them to do anything. I'm reminded of when we were growing up, we had what is called National Youth Lobby. And we lobbied the government, we lobbied the politicians, we lobbied, the municipality, and we wanted to speak as a group. But the main mandate was to, advance into the leadership of this country in the next generation, which we tried to do. And most of those people that were in National Youth Lobby today are members of parliament. Some of them have been governors, and some of them have been councillors, and whomsoever you may think of, because there was a strategy. This war of politicians is not won on TV sets. It's not won when you sit pretty on your iPad and Twitter and whatever you call it that our young men are going through today. It is not going to be brought, even if it is money that has been set aside for you there. If you don't go for it, you'll never get it, because these people are sharks. And they are only concerned about the people they see. The youths are spending so much time at home and in their gadgets and going out there to find out what is belonging to them and what has been put for them.
Bobby Wine style, let me ask, and should it be intolerant to that level where, again, you see what is happening?
Even to that extent, I can tell you. That's bravery, and that's making sure. For example, if you went to the counties today, on that 30% rule, it is the youth that are selling their certificates to these, entrepreneurs, because they come up with parties, and once they come up with parties, they're not able to raise resources. The question is, why are they not able to raise the resources? The government is not going to give you everything, and I'm not supporting the government on this, but I know for a fact that, people only talk about you in politics when you're in the same table. But let's go back to what's happening today. I strongly believe that there are genuine discussions that need to be advanced. And I don't believe that once this BBI is passed, that is going to be the end of constitutional reform. Okay. But I also want to say something that is very, very important to me. A document like a constitution is only good as the leader of the country. If the leader of the country, who is a president, does not want to implement a constitutional mandate, he will not. Even if we say that BBI is the best document we'll ever have, I can guarantee you that if you get a bad president, he will shred everything that is in BBI and he will rule in ways that you never thought.
We are likely to have the same faces today. What makes you think then there's that need for us to go and proceed and pass this document if genuinely what we have in the 2010 Constitution, as Nordin puts it, has really not been implemented to what we'd expect?
What I am saying is very clear. The proponents of these documents, majority of them are headed by none other than the deputy president who is in government.
Okay.
And he's not just in government, he is actually the deputy leader of Jubilee Party. That is running this government. And they have a number of members of parliament, parliamentarians, as well as the senators. These are the people that are coming up today and telling Kenyans, oh, you know what? This document seems not to be very good. The president reminded us that I've been briefing this gentleman, and if you think I'm lying, you ask him in Bomas, ask him.
Yeah.
He even helped me get some of these committee members in the BBI. What does that tell the nation? It tells the nation the amount of deceit in the camp of the deputy president.
Okay.
That you want to go out there to say that I don't know about this, it's a bad document, but you are part and parcel of that very document that you're distributing. I want to agree with them that there is no document that everybody in a country like a constitution will say that this is okay and we all go for it. So it is for political prudence, it is for political schemes for the next 2022. We've realized in this country that if you oppose a document so vehemently, you might just get a huge backing of people and perhaps you'll find yourself in the discussion of the table.
Okay. Yes.
Linda.
Yeah.
I am a very disappointed person this morning.
Okay.
After listening to Nordin. And I can confidently conclude that he hasn't read the document. Because anyone who argues that the document is about expanding the executive. And is about just referendum is a liar. Is a liar because that document, that report, has been divided into the sections that I've said. There is the legislative part of it, and one of the bills under the legislative implementation matrix that I love most, that I want him to go and read, is the prompt payment bill. And the SMEs bill that is targeting the young people who are struggling today. They do their business honestly and they are not being paid for years.
Yeah.
Okay? Number two, I also want Nordin to go and look at the policy, because most of the issues that Kenyans talk about are issues of policy. And the executive can come together with the legislative, even tomorrow, even this morning, and implement that. Okay. So you don't need a referendum for that. I want him to go and read that. But let me go back to why this report is important to the people, and they must read it so that they get the benefit. Number one is the issue of economic meltdown that we experience after every 5-year election cycle because of divisive election. This document attempts to cure that. How? The president that will be a product of this document is mandated now by law that in every of his presidential address, State of the Nation address to Parliament, he must demonstrate and speak to the country of how he has achieved the requirements in Article 43, socio-economic rights, that are the key issues that govern this country. Water, healthcare, food, not just water, clean water, food, and all those things. It is there. Again, the document has gone further to demonstrate how the equitable share is tied to that key Bill of Rights. That is a Bill of Rights. In the division of revenue, and as a criteria to ensure that we know how much and how that money will be going to the counties, the proposed increment of 35%, one of the criteria, the new one, will be the need to ensure that the requirements of Article 43, water, electricity, food, and healthcare is achieved. So you're not just going to divide water and money without looking at that criteria, how county is going to do that. Number two, the need to stop corruption as a criteria. Now, let's go back to the young people that he has said are not catered for. Majority of the young people, Linda, are in the counties, in the villages, in the wards. This document proposes that at least, and we're talking, the question of wording is at least 35% of the national collection audited. Do you know, in the last financial year, this country collected over 1.6 trillion KRA. 35% of 1.6 trillion gives the counties an additional 192 billion to the 320 that is given today. That money will be going to the county. And at least 35% of the county money, equitable share, now goes to the ward where the young people are seated at the base, talking, idling, and now they have money that they can now try and put themselves into proper use through development. That money will attract job creation. But something that he has said, because you know, he wants to react, he has a right to reply. But before let me finish. Majority of the opponents of this document have cited Youth Commission and HELP because they think that is only targeting the elites or the youth who have gone to school. Fair enough. But look, the problems of the young people, it talks about National Youth Council that has got limited mandate. A constitutional commission has got no limited mandate. Or rather, the mandate is broadened, unlike the council of the youth. This is where the problems of all youth shall converge. It is a decision-making organ, and the constitution of that commission, there are 7. And the proposal is that 4 of them must be young people. Okay? And then in terms of decision making, if there are 4, and if there are 7 and 4 already young people, tell me in voting who is running that commission. It is the young people. And therefore, Nudin should understand that in terms of solving the issues that are affecting this country, it is about politics.
Others argue that there is more creation of problems in regards to the same. Let's allow Nudin come in and then we come back to you. Yes.
You know, first and foremost, allow me to correct him. As a lawyer, I read and research for a living.
I doubt that.
So let me, you're allowed to. So, Matters BBI report, I have read the document. The same day it was launched, I read the document. All right. Now, he's talking about what would you say, the Youth Commission. It says 4. It says at least 4 should be youth. Now, this is Jubilee we are talking about, right? Let me go to straight to the president, right?
Right.
The term youth for the president, the current president.
Yes.
The term youth, if you are to define youth for him, it is it's a weird definition. Because during Mashujaa Day, he said during his dispensation, he's appointed youth, he's giving youth a chance. Now, the other day in Parliament, he sent nominees. He sent nominees to Parliament for ambassadorial posts. 5 of them or 4 of them were 60-year-old people. And now one was 49 years old. Now he says, it's time, now we are thinking about the young men and women. Fair enough. My issue with the BBI is simple. It can have all the sweet wordings and everything. But the political goodwill is the issue. You can tell us anything you want to tell us about the youth. You know, Michael said that we should not wait to be given anything. Personally, I don't believe in being handed over anything. I believe the problem facing the youth is the political class that we have. Those people who came right after YK92 that are in power right now, I'll tell you for a fact, they will never allow any young person to come to the discussion table. I'm not saying I want to be part of the discussion table. I'm saying listen to the youth. We have for years been the menu on the diet. They plan their own things, then they need us to pass that. So they will come and entice you. They have seduced, abused, and misused us for years. Nobody cares about the youth. They will never empower you because they believe impoverish them to use them. So when they come with a document and tell me at the county level, certain funds will be sent there. Go and look for them. You know what's funny? Let me tell you something. Let's go straight to the COVID millionaires heist. Most of the companies that won the tenders were new companies. With the same thing with the youth fund. We have the tenderpreneurs, or as they call them, the certain cartels, which we don't know the faces. They use young people to register companies. And then they get the funds. Let's say they get 60 million and they give you 1 million shillings. So you're trying to tell me they're opening up for the young people for you to be able to be empowered.
And those are the kinds of problems that I was talking about. Creation of more problems.
Let me tell you, the economic freedom that the young men and women need will never be handed over to us. Knock down those doors and get it for yourselves. Because at the end of the day, only you can save yourself. They have a political selfish interest. They will take care of it and they will never liberate you. And you have to liberate your mind to know that they will never help you, because at the end of the day they need you. They need to panel beat you in a certain way. You know, I was disturbed and sad when Alex Matere spoke that day. When he sent jabs to the deputy president, he should have addressed the president, the right honorable prime minister, and the deputy president, and told them they are the cancer the youth are facing. They are the reason we're impoverished. They are the reasons we lack the empowerment that we want. They have closed the doors. Let me tell you, for example, they have closed the doors that you can never get to the discussion table. What do I mean? Our political parties never mentor. They say youth are not ready to take up, but you never mentor anyone. The ones you send there are the likes of Babuino, who you will panel beat to go in and speak whatever they're going to say to amuse you. But they will never like different views or divergent views. And that is the issue.
Hold it right there, Fred. And worry not, because I'll be coming to you. Let's listen in to what it is that Michael would say. And yes, those are reactions based on what it is that you have presented earlier on. Just how much or what will it take us to get leaders that will be good enough to be able to implement these documents as good as they may look? Because you rightfully put it that this document is as good as the leader that we'll have then. Not much of goodwill have we witnessed before. What makes you think that this would change?
I go back to Nujin. It's said that the politicians have indeed misused the youth and abandoned them so that they can continue with the life of poverty. I totally agree with you. That's a really, really huge observation. But the irony of it is, who do the politicians use to get to their positions?
The very same
It's the youth. And secondly, it is also the youth that votes them in. This country, until we realize that we are going to be just a mirror of our leaders and change that narrative and decide to elect men and women of integrity, we will not get to where we're getting or where we want to go. We will not get there. It is not possible to elect a thief and then you expect him not to steal. That's what is happening in the counties. There's some thieves that have been elected in the National Assembly and some other places that we know of. Some of these people that have questionable background, some of them have been in jail, been governors, and what do you expect of him? He'll tell you, but I've been there before, I've done this, and I can now perfect it with authority that has been given to me. Now I even have a security. The policemen are guarding me, so I can do this with great experience that I've had in the past. And so I think it will be prudent for this government to look at the issue of fighting the constitution, the corruption in this country. to a point where basically when we're going for an election and you're found to have been culpable in any way or even purported to have been involved in some corruption, then you should not present yourself. Let's enhance Chapter 6 so that these people are not elected and we know that they are bad people and then we expect, manna from heaven through them. It is not possible. When we're talking about, I saw Senator Cherengani, they are saying, let's bring it to Parliament so that we will make sure it fails. Who is it talking to? It's talking about the very fat party that is very party where the president is supporting a document. Who is he, to say that we'll deal with them when it's brought into the House? Legislators are the ones who have failed this country. Yeah. They failed this country for the very reason which Nurdin is talking about, that they, sorry, you're not Haji. There's only one Nurdin Haji in this country. So it's talking about, that these people, when it comes to legislative matters, they are not even in Parliament. They don't even talk. A number of them don't even raise a hand or a finger. They wait to be whipped to either vote or vote against it. And that is exactly what has been happening. So when Senator Cherengani is telling us that he will come to the House and will shoot it down, who is he talking to? Okay. So this is the kind of politics that we are having in this country. It starts from the electorates. It starts from Chapter 6. Men and women of integrity being elected into these positions. And then it boils down to the people that are appointed to head these institutions. Yeah. If you elect somebody because he's a political crony, I can tell you will not serve in the interest of that parastatal, but he'll serve in the interest of the appointed person. I mean, whoever appointed him, this appointee. And in this case, what I see in the BBI, in my view, is when we talk about positions and we say, oh, this thing is just about position, this is the most weird way of analyzing BBI. Right. And Linda, ironically, these people go out there and say, oh, do not vote for BBI. But they don't tell you why. Why? And they tell you, oh, it's going to be a huge weight bill.
The deputy president gave his reasons. The deputy president gave his reasons. Do you think they are valid reasons?
Hold on. How much are we losing in corruption? Yeah. The deputy president has not said, we are losing over 600 billion every single year in corruption. He's not told us that. And he's not told us how we'll make sure that money can be converted into non-corrupt and can be used to pay these people. It's not about the position that he's talking about. He's talking about individuals that he thinks will be in those positions. Constitution is not made because of individuals that are going to occupy it, but for posterity. And Constitution lives beyond individuals that we think are in the political, political field today. And tomorrow I'm going to be there, and tomorrow I will not be there. And so, if we are building a constitution and position that we think will unite this country, let's discourage as such and leave individuals that we think are going to occupy those positions.
The conversations are on. Before you react, and I'd love for you to probably weigh in your sentiments on this. One, you are an interested party for sure, and your interest would be to see the BBI sail through. It is almost impossible to ignore the dissenting voices and to even look at the fact that they hold some good numbers, and the reality on ground is that not every other Kenyan is going to read this document. So some of them are going to be brainwashed by the lies or the truths that are being peddled around. So in this case, what are you going to do to ensure that yes, the voices of the dissenting end are looked into, are addressed, to avoid a scenario where it is going to alter the direction that you want the BBI to take?
Thank you, Linda. I like what Mike has said, the weird way of analyzing BBI. And I want to go back to Nurdin again. And lawyers, when they read documents, they read documents objectively. I want to believe that it will get to that stage at some point. And if a lawyer, then he is a junior. That's how we say in law. Now, number two, the first annex that Nurdin would have read, being a lawyer, he would have read the legislative aspect of this document. Yeah. And more so, he would have gone straight and read the amendments, the proposed amendments to the election laws and the statutes. And I want to refer him to one, the Political Parties Act 2011. Today, the political parties that receive funds there's no proper criteria of getting the political parties fund. But in the proposal, the requirement is that now your party must include the young people, and 15% of that money shall, 15% of that money shall go towards you achieving the young people inclusion. The other one, 15% is women. The other one, people with disability. Then 5% is only on operation. So I am very disappointed again that he has not read that, even him being a lawyer. Number two, you have talked about the lies that have been spread. The people who are spreading lies, they don't go and critique the document. Like you see, Nudin is struggling to critique this document. He has not outlined where in this document, yes, Nudin, you can always comment, where in this document, you know, lawyers, when you speak, you allow your no, nothing like that. In this document, the people who are criticizing it have not put it plainly and say, in this section, let's go to the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2020. In this article, in this chapter, I don't agree with it because 1, 2, 3. They are just regurgitating around it. Now, I want to tell you, the issue is not even about the people who are opposing the document. The issue is how to explain to the public on the benefit of this document. Personally, I'm not in government. Okay? Yeah. You know that. But the reason why I support the economic inclusivity in this document and others is because that is a problem that is built in this country. Today we are talking about a country that experiences economic meltdown. And the majority of the sufferers are the young people. When there's economic meltdown, they are the jobless, they are the underemployed. I am disappointed that a young person today, instead of offering solution, can criticize a document with a political lens, because politics will come and go. And the people who have been saying this is a political inclusion document. Okay, let's look at the political inclusion. Our problem, 1992, 2002, 2007, 2017, 2013, 2017 has been political stability after every election. Why? Because we don't trust our institutions. This document is strengthening institutions. And look at IEBC. It is strengthening IEBC in the sense that today, now in this proposal, now you can have a rivet of the commissioners. Right. You can have commissioners, or their staff that is serving on a terminal basis. And you can also look at those people and put them to task because there is that provision. But does that solve the problem? Yes and no. No, because if we have got an institution that do not want to reform, they'll fight it the same way I'm seeing others are fighting. They'll get even protectors from the political field. We are saying in this document, it guarantees strengthening devolution where majority of Kenyans are. In this document, it guarantees inclusion of the young people, not only the youth, the young people. He said here, President Kenyatta's definition of youth is nothing but just the old talk. He talked of appointing the ambassadorial to the youth. Let me tell you, the ambassador of a country in another country is like the president representative. And there are certain qualifications that I also want him to go and check, the qualification of becoming an ambassador. And Mike here, who has lived in foreign countries, will also tell you that it requires some level of experience, some level of expertise. I'm not saying the young people don't have that. They do have. But I'm saying also it requires the involvement and partnership and experience working with governments. That has been done. If there are any young people that has that experience, President Kenyatta should appoint them. Right. Number 3, the majority of the people that have failed this country most are also the young people, because they don't take part in political processes. Today I'm a young person. I am a secretary general of a party. I don't know what he thinks, him being a leader of a political party, so that he can push the agenda from the political front. Maybe when he gets to that level, now he'll start seeing that the young people must be involved and must get involved instead of complaining on TV. Lastly, I want to urge the people who are watching this show, and particularly the young people. This document has been sold to you by the opponents as a document that is not for you. This document is for you. This document is for you because for the first time in this country, there's a proposal to converge your problems at a central point where it can be sorted and you can point a finger on the failure.
Right.
Today we have got National Youth Council, we have got, Ministry of Gender and so on. They are divided. And if you look at the composition of those institutions or those ministries, there are no young people faces. Their faces are not there. They're not there. But for the first time, we're going to have a commission that is led by the young people and composed of the young people. And therefore, if the young people fail, we can say, you are given an opportunity to make a decision on our behalf. What did you do?
And just how much have the leaders that we have, the young leaders that we have today, done to prove that
the young people that we have today, that's why I agree with him, have been propelled to speak on behalf of the old. This document is reversing that negative gain. It is reversing it in the sense that now we are going to have young people involved in politics through election, through party, through executive. We are going to have them. Then it is on the table. Linda, you cannot make a decision from the fence. You must make a decision when you're on the table. When you are here, you make your point known when you are here. But when you're speaking from the periphery, no one listens to you. This document is providing inclusion of the young people on the table so that they can make decisions from the policy view, from the legislative view, from the administrative view, including all of them. And there's a constitutional principle that Nudin also must acclimatize with. That constitutional principle requires that in appointing people in public offices, the requirement is that it shall reflect the regional diversity of the people of Kenya. The regional diversity of the people of Kenya, it also includes the demographics. Number 3, in that principle also, the people living with disability that have seen his opponents speaking about, they are not included. They are included in 52.4. So 54.2. So for me, I think that let's forget about the other issue of how politics is being played, what it is, even though it's a political process, but look at the economic aspect of this document. How is it going to impact Mama Mboga and the young person who has a shop in Kasipul Kabondo, Kakero Kukwanyo Ward? How is it going to impact him? The money that is going to go to the village, the impact of that money, even the bills that have been proposed, SMEs, prompt payment, they are all for the young people because those small businesses are owned by young people, not the old. In my view, and as I submit, this document is for everyone. But I don't like the fact that the politicians who have benefited, who are rich, are radicalizing the young people against this document because they know that if this document is accepted by the young people, they will lose their positions in power.
First and foremost, I want to say that I hold no brief for anyone. I speak as Nurdin Gagai, independent-minded, and I don't sugarcoat what I say. And it's unfortunate, I think maybe I'm speaking Russian or Mandarin because he can't grasp what I'm saying. What I'm saying is simple and clear. There is no single document that will resolve the issues of Kenya, irrespective of how perfect it might seem. Without the goodwill of the leaders, it will never see the light of day. That's what I'm talking about. So when he says it's unfortunate that the youth are being radicalized, I'm not radicalizing anyone per se, personally. I'm speaking as Nurdin, and I've not told anyone to go and vote in a particular manner. He said, I haven't touched on where I feel there are issues. Simple. I'll go to the judiciary. When you talk about independence of the judiciary, you're talking about appointing an ombudsman via the president. All right? Currently, as it back then, the ombudsman was via magistrate, but now judges would never appear before us junior. So currently, it's under the DCJ, and you're now saying should be a president appointee. So we're asking ourselves, is that appointee going to be independent? That's number one. You're talking about strengthening institutions. Hold on.
He's an appointee of the president. Is he independent?
Let's be honest. You need to relax. The fact that he said there's a bias. This is what I don't like about the BBI opponents. You believe that the BBI is a Quran or a Bible, and you need to follow like sheep. We need to discuss the document, and I will not be panel beaten. I will never. So what I'm saying is simple. For example, the judiciary, as I'm saying, you're talking about strengthening institutions. Why don't you fund the judiciary better? Why don't you talk about funding the judiciary? Fund it better. You have underfunded it. So as to use it for certain reasons, you know. So, and then you come and say, like he said, the youth are busy at the base, relaxing and what have you. You know what you're trying to allude to, the fact that now political parties are going to be given the funds. We know that the funds to either help the youth, the women, and the PWBs. Now the issue is, which youth will that party finance? Which, relax.
I don't think that's the as I allow you to speak.
No, listen.
The proposal is that when the political parties are getting the funds,
we are having a debate.
will be given on the basis of the performance of the political parties in terms of those demographics.
He allowed you to finish.
I allow you to finish.
No, you don't allow me to lie to the public.
You know, at the end of the day, he's saying it's a constitutional. He's trying to term it as a constitutional moment. And let's not use the political spec. We can never put politics away from anything, because it is a way of life. Even at work, Linda, today, there's politics here. Yeah. At T47, even in your house, there's politics. Even in marriage, there's politics. So when you say you cannot look at the political angle, you have to look at it. So what I'm saying is, he's saying, for example, they will look at how it performs. That is not my issue. My issue is, which youth is this that will be given the nomination certificate? You see what I'm trying to talk about? I'm not saying, we are talking about youth coming to the discussion table, not just by virtue of being young. What is youth? We are speaking about people who are selfless. We want different leadership. We want alternative leadership. We want youth who believe in the mantra or who have the same school of thought. Like I come from the Thomas Sankara school of thought, where you believe your country comes first than making riches. You know, what we have right now is people who are going into these seats to make money. And we need to change that, you know. So when you say youth, the youth are lazy and sleeping in water and other children at the base, who has given them for example, I'm lucky enough for this platform. How many would want this platform? How can people reach you, Linda? They don't know how they'll reach you. If someone would come and seek an interview, it would be hard for them to get it. I'm lucky I have this. So when you say the youth don't want to take part in anything, it's a lie, because there are no mechanisms or there are no places where they can come and articulate their issues. Now, for example, when you talk about the BBI, they have forgotten or they misunderstand the country that everyone has gone to school. You publish a document in English. What happens to Kiswahili if I'm not going to school? What happens to the blind? Let's be honest. Let's be honest. We're talking about the document. Listen. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. If I've never gone to school, I'm a Mamboga, or I sell or I'm a Makanga. I have 2 or 4 pages I'm supposed to read, or I'm supposed to fill a car.
All right. Well, one would argue that if you've not gone to school, you'd not even be able to read Swahili. Exactly. All the same, it sort of makes sense. Let's allow Bakula, when I was following up on what is happening in the US, he will be telling us what is happening there, because I know he's an interested party also in this particular one. So, as we wind up on the BBI, what are the possibilities of this document seeing a scenario where it will go uncontested, non-contested for that matter, and what would it mean? Because then we're also looking at a scenario where we are able to cut costs as a country. We're having a conversation that is healthy enough for everyone in the nation, and I mean, looking at it, well, this is probably going to be a hard task or a hard nut to crack.
You know, first of all, I'm really impressed with Okanga here for having read the document. I think it's really, really important. You can see him delving into serious issues that are of national importance. And I think that's why you have a discourse in communicating what is in the document, or just paraphrasing what you've had out there. I say that with a fact that there are many people who have not read this document. And I think perhaps even less than 10% of the population has not read this document. Today, in one of our forums for analysts, I think I saw somebody asking a question and saying, who has the hard copy of the BBI? I want to ask Nurjin and many other people out there that perhaps have not seen the hard copy to ask the hustler leader that any place he goes to and he talks about BBI, the first thing you need to ask him is, can we have that BBI document? You see that? And that also cuts across to actually the proponents of the BBI document, whether the president or the former prime minister. He needs to go out there, and when he talks about BBI, please hand over this document so that people can read it. main thing that happens with politicians is if they know something and they know you don't know, they'll take advantage of you, whether you like it or not. And I think that is the scenario today. We are having a situation where the people that are opposing BBI are saying it is bad, but they're not telling people what is bad in that document. A document like this, there might be things that will be contested, and there are also things that are good in it. Let's put it before the people so that they decide.
After reading.
After reading. And that, to me, is the most important thing. Print this thing in native language. Let people read those issues so that they can say, we've read, we've understood. Let's go to radio and tell people about the BBI. Enumerate it in all those 4 aspects of it. And also tell them about the process of changing the constitution so that they understand. When we go to those funerals, instead of a party leader saying that you pass this thing the way it is and there is no point for any further negotiation. No. Be humble and tell people, ladies and gentlemen, this is what this thing say. What do you say about it? Or what do you think about it? That is going to endear more people into supporting this document. I strongly believe it's time that politicians humble themselves and really tell people what is in the BBI, because people do not know what is in the BBI. And it will be, the proponents of the BBI are going to use a lot of money, by the way, if they have not distributed this document, because there will be sporadic opposition without knowing what is in the document. But if they had the document, then they can say, this is what it is. Perhaps we need to think about our support on this document. Last but not least, do not tell people today that you're opposing BPI if you're in government. I strongly believe with all of my heart that you must be a fool and you're trying to cheat fools that you've cheated for many, many years that this document is bad. You know what is happening in a political process, and I think I met you, Okango, when we were appearing before the BBI team in Laiko. I remember that. People have forgotten that if you're in the judiciary, and there is a constitutional amendment process going on, that you should not sit pretty and just wait and say, oh, we are independent, let's just sit and wait. No, you're lying to yourself. Use the lobbyists. Put your people there. Find out whether your interest is on the table being discussed. These Kenyans are not doing. The Senate, for example, Linda, they went out there and said, oh, now you want to relegate us to some other, no position. And so many, we need to be an upper house. Where were they? They were sitting pretty in the Senate. In fact, they were discussing bills. They forgot that a constitutional making was in the process. And they needed to have their people there. And anything that regarded the Senate should have been discussed while they were there. If you don't want to be there then, use the opportunity of lobbies. Lobbies now need to come in. And I think that's what one of the government agencies hired us to do. And they said, go there and find out whether we can also be slaughtered on that discussion. And even if you have lawyers that are lobbyists, to some of us you're consultant, and we could do that very easily. But I can tell you, that's what these institutions need to do. Police Service Commission, they never thought that they needed to lobby for their independence. Now if somebody is taking it away from you and then you start crying in the field, oh, where were you? This, to me, is not, it's putting people to head institutions without brains, most cases. They don't think that they are, when there's a political process and when there's a constitutional change, that they need to be there to safeguard their interests and to advance in the development of the institutions they're headed. And that is quite unfortunate. And so when you come up and say, well, let's oppose this thing, and you're not telling people why you're opposing, you're cheating Kenyans, and you need to be relegated to some group of people that really are not in the advancements of this.
Gentlemen, allow me to wind up on this conversation. Right? I know you have some reservations that you'd want to present, but I will not allow it because
just to, I appreciate what Senior Michael Gwanda said. It is a challenge to the opponents and proponents. And I think, maybe just to answer my friend here, this document ultimately is going to get to the people in local dialects, in Kiswahili, and even the local languages. It is coming. I'm sure he will get his copy and he'll read it. But most importantly, him as somebody who has gone to school and learned it, should take the opportunity to read the document, and outline the issues that he has a problem with and try to educate the public about them. That will be positive criticism. But the politicians, let us not follow their cue, particularly if their cue is misleading, and particularly if the same politician sits in the table in government that make policies for the government. It is like you're in your own house, and then you discredit everything that your household decision has made. You make it, then you go out and say, no, I'm not for that, while you are in the decision making, as Michael Gona said. Lastly, Linda, I want to say that this document, we must read it, we must speak about it, we must share it with others, but most importantly, let us look at this document. What are the issues that are going to affect the common lives? They are numerous. Does that qualify this document to be supported? Yes, it does. Because if those issues are going to be for the benefit of the majority, not minority, people have narrowed their thinking at the executive. In my view, that is nothing. Look at the money that is going to the counties, economy, shared prosperity and economy. Look at the economic inclusion. Look at the legislative agenda that is now starting. Some of these things are being implemented now. And the people who are saying no to the document are in parliament implementing the legislation. Look at the IEBC. They're implementing that. The BBI. Why don't they say that this is part of the BBI report, we don't want it? It is lies, lies, lies.
We're coming to you. We're coming to
one thing for you. I just want to remind you that when you asked about the political parties nominating the youth, a good example is Grace Mora of Kisii. And she was a youth, she's a youth, and she's been one important individual in championing the issues of the youth. So the political parties can do, but I can tell you what Grace Mora did. When she was a banker, she quit and joined politics. And when she joined politics, she was there every single day, and she did it. When nomination came, she was nominated, and she's not disappointed the youth. So indeed, there's some few youths that are also being nominated in this position, but you've got to fight for it.
Like, let me just pick it up from where you left. We have to fight for it. And I said it clearly, and I always say this. We have to knock down those doors, because they will never be open. You know, mine, it's funny, because at the end of the day, there is no particular single time I've said, vote no or vote yes. All I have said is simple. We can have the best document in the world, but we need to have the right leaders, and not just leaders. We need leaders of integrity. And I'll tell you for free, every single one championing for BBI or against, they lack the integrity. I'll tell you for free. And also I'm saying we need the young men and women of this country to wake up, break those shackles that you're in, and offer alternative leadership. We have seen what these people have done for 20, 30 years. They are all dogs with no new tricks. It is time, because at the end of the day, if we go for a referendum and it passes, this legislation that will be there will affect the youth. We are the ones who have the advantage of time. And I keep saying this because we are here to stay. We have the advantage of time. They will leave and they'll go. We'll be left with those laws. So all I am saying is, wake up, join, or fight for your space in the conversation, on the discussion table. Change the mentality that we have always been the menu in the diet, and become part and parcel. Fight for your seat, and let us champion alternative leadership. Kenya as it is, things are going south. We need to change that, because let us not just implement what the BBI report wants. We have reports that were drafted, sit idle in boardrooms. Can we implement the TGRC? Can we implement the Ndugu report? Can we solve historical injustices? And that can't be done with leaders who are liars, who are full of deceit, and who have selfish interests. We need selfless leaders. And I will leave by saying, the struggle for freedom for every young man will be tiresome, will be chaotic, will be full of sweat, lies on cloth, sweat, and full of blood. The president said during the Mashujaa Day, we should be ready to sacrifice. I know I am ready. Are you, as a young man there watching, are you ready? Take up the mantle, wake up, and get busy.
All right, well, time is not on our side. In 1 minute, or maybe 30 seconds, road to 270. I know you're interested. United States.
Well, the only thing I can say, it's a lovely country to be in. and they believe in democracy.
Yeah.
And what I know for a fact is the two parties have been the biggest parties for close to 400 years now.
Yeah.
Trump is in the ballot box, and so is Vice President Biden. To those two individuals, one of them are going to be declared president. I think sometimes we want to read so much into what is happening in the United States of America. Their system works, and it works in the interest of their people. I do not want to preempt who is going to win. I think the numbers are speaking for themselves today, and I know by the end of the day, we will know who is winning. It is only my prayer that the division politics that we've seen in the United States campaign in the last few months need to end with this election. That everybody in the United States, whether they're people of color, whether they're immigrants, whether they are people without papers or people with papers, that they'll feel respected, and that they will feel that they're living in a safe country. I saw a story the other day on Al Jazeera of people buying more guns in the United States of America. I only pray that this is not in preparation for aggressiveness against one another, but that it will only be for protecting their properties. Because I think living in the United States is one of the most peaceful countries you want to live in. In fact, in my view, living in the United States is much better than living in Europe by far. And, there are many other teething issues that people have experienced, like discrimination and many other things. But that does not take the good that is in that country, that has elevated and included many people from world over to go and make a living and make a better living in the United States.
Right.
And so it is my prayer that this election will unite the country instead of dividing the country. Whoever becomes the president, please fight on uniting the country that seems to have been divided in the last few months.
Okango.
It's going down to the wire, and if you look at the US elections, I think both candidates have a chance at the presidency, both of them. And from the latest, if what I'm reading and hearing is true, it appears that the Democrats have surpassed the electoral votes in 2016 that Hillary Clinton got to 227. As it is now, they are at 232. And therefore, good signs for the Democrats. But again, it is too early to call this election because it is very tight. I've seen some of the states that are going to be determinant. The projections are very tight, and let's wait and see. But I believe that the most important thing, America is one of the superpowers. It's a big economy, and you can imagine post-election violence in America, how things change very fast. We don't want to see that because it will be terrible. A big effect to the global democracies. So for me, I project that this election can only be called when the last ballot is done, and it's not easy. It's not going to be easy. But I think Democrats have a chance.
Well, it is really not easy as it stands.
All I can say, as their name says, the USA, United States of America, I hope the elections, as they end, they remain as united as they are. Because at the end of the day, any divisive politics will hinder any growth for any country. And if at all, as tight as it is, if at all Trump wins, it only proves one thing, that the white supremacist is actually real. It will prove that. Because it will also prove that the age of political correctness is over. So it's interesting times. Let's wait and see how things develop.
Indeed. Nordin Kagai, lawyer and politician Fred Okango, Secretary General Third-Way Alliance, and lastly governance expert Michael Lagwanda. Thank you so much for the great insights, gentlemen. We cross over to a different conversation altogether after this break.